The music, the costumes, the hair. There's only one ABBA. And after decades of going their own way, the Swedish supergroup is back.
Well, I would say that the major difference between writing music for me or for my band or for whatever is that I can decide what to use.
I didn't care much. I don't think anyone of us did, because we had this huge audience that liked our records.
For decades, the world has danced to ABBA's timeless music. But behind the glittering lights and joyous melodies, there were secrets, heartbreaks, and stories the band never shared. Now, at 78, Benny Andersson is finally speaking out. And the truth he's revealed about her is not what fans expected. ABBA wasn't just another pop group. They were a global phenomenon. From the moment they won Eurovision in 1974 with Waterloo, the Swedish foursome, Agnetha Fältskog, Björn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson, and anni-frid went on to dominate the charts, selling hundreds of millions of records and becoming one of the most beloved groups in music history. Their songs were pure joy on the surface, but the reality behind the band was far more complicated. Personal relationships collapsed, fame took its toll, and the group eventually split. For years, the members kept their private struggles out of the spotlight. But now, Benny Andersson has pulled back the curtain. And what he revealed about her changes how we see ABBA's story forever. But who exactly was her? And why did Benny wait until now to speak the truth? In the mid-1970s, ABBA was unstoppable. Their unique blend of pop melodies, rich harmonies, and emotional lyrics made them international superstars. Songs like Dancing Queen, Mamma Mia, and Fernando became instant classics. But ABBA was more than just catchy tunes. Behind the music were two real-life couples, Agnetha and Björn, and Benny and anni-frid. Their chemistry gave the group its magic, both on stage and in the studio. Fans adored the image of love and unity, four people living the dream together. Yet as their fame grew, the cracks began to show. Fame brought pressure, tabloids brought scrutiny, and the lines between personal and professional lives blurred. The question was, could ABBA survive the weight of their own success? By the late 1970s, ABBA's music had begun to shift. The upbeat disco anthems were still there, but darker, more emotional songs crept into their albums. Tracks like The Winner Takes It All weren't just lyrics, they were reflections of real heartbreak. That heartbreak came from within the group itself. Agnetha and Björn's marriage crumbled in 1979. 2 years later, Benny and anni-frid followed with their own divorce. Suddenly, ABBA wasn't two happy couples singing about love. It was four individuals trying to navigate personal pain while performing for millions. For fans, the songs became even more powerful. For the band, they were reminders of wounds that hadn't healed. And yet, through it all, one woman carried a burden that Benny would later admit the world never fully understood. But who was she? And what secret did Benny reveal about her decades later? On stage, Agnetha Fältskog was radiant, the golden-haired beauty with a voice that soared effortlessly through songs like SOS and The Winner Takes It All. To the world, she seemed untouchable, the perfect pop star living a dream life. But Benny later admitted that fans never truly understood how much Agnetha struggled behind the scenes. The spotlight that made her adored by millions also became her prison. She was shy, intensely private, and uneasy with the endless attention that came with ABBA's fame. Touring was particularly brutal. Long months on the road kept her away from her young children, something she confessed tore her apart. She often cried in hotel rooms after shows, consumed by loneliness and guilt. The glamour of world tours, Benny explained, masked a deep pain that Agnetha carried in silence. Her divorce from Björn only intensified that pain. Imagine having to stand on stage, night after night, and sing love songs, sometimes even songs written about your own heartbreak, while your ex-husband played guitar just feet away. Benny admitted that what Agnetha endured during those years was nothing short of extraordinary. For years, fans believed she withdrew from the public eye after ABBA simply because she wanted privacy. But as Benny revealed, it was more than that. The weight of fame, heartbreak, and motherhood left her scarred in ways the world never knew. But Agnetha wasn't the only one whose struggles were hidden, because across from her on stage was anni-frid Frida Lyngstad, and her pain was just as profound. So, what truth did Benny finally share about Frida, the other half of ABBA's iconic female duo? Anni-frid Lyngstad, known simply as Frida, was the darker-haired counterpart to Agnetha, with a rich, emotional voice that gave ABBA's harmonies their depth. She projected strength, elegance, and charisma. But behind the surface, her life was marked by tragedy. Frida's early years were overshadowed by war. She was born in Norway to a German soldier and a Norwegian mother during World War II, a beginning that brought stigma, hardship, and loss. Later in life, she endured further heartbreak, including the tragic death of her daughter in a car accident in 1998. But during ABBA's heyday, Benny now admits, Frida carried a heavy emotional load that was often overlooked. Her marriage to Benny crumbled just as Agnetha's did with Bjorn. And like Agnetha, she had to perform songs about love, loss, and resilience while living through those very emotions. Benny described her as incredibly strong, yet profoundly wounded. Her professional poise masked a personal fragility that only those closest to her truly saw. He confessed that while ABBA's music brought joy to millions, it sometimes came at the cost of Frida's own happiness. And it was this reality, the contrast between public success and private pain, that Benny says shaped how the world misunderstood ABBA's women for so long. But why did Benny decide to reveal these truths now, decades after the band's peak? For years, fans speculated about what Benny Andersson truly thought of ABBA's whirlwind years. He rarely spoke publicly about the darker side of the group's success, but now, at 78, he finally addressed the truth and revealed who she was, the person whose pain has haunted him most. Benny admitted it was Agnetha Feltskog who carried the heaviest burden during ABBA's rise. While both women struggled, it was Agnetha who bore the brunt of fame's sharpest edges. Her voice defined many of ABBA's greatest hits, but behind every performance was a woman quietly suffering. He confessed that Agnetha's natural shyness, her longing for a normal life, and her role as a mother meant that the relentless demands of stardom often broke her spirit. She didn't crave global fame, she craved stability. Yet the machine of ABBA pulled her in a direction she could not escape. Benny revealed he has carried guilt for decades. Guilt for pushing forward with tours when she wanted to be home. Guilt for celebrating success while watching her retreat further into isolation. And guilt for not fully protecting her from the pressures of a world that saw her only as a pop goddess, not as a fragile human being. This was the truth Benny finally confirmed, that Agnetha, the shining star adored by millions, was also the one most deeply scarred by the very success that made her a legend. But Agnetha's struggles weren't the only cost of ABBA's success, because, as Benny admitted, the price of global stardom was far higher than anyone outside the group could have imagined. So what did ABBA truly lose in exchange for their fame? ABBA sold more than 400 million records worldwide. Their music filled arenas, topped charts, and became the soundtrack of generations. But Benny revealed that this kind of success came with a staggering price. The most obvious cost was personal. Both marriages within the band collapsed under the pressure. Agnetha and Bjorn's divorce inspired "The Winner Takes It All," a song so raw that even Agnetha herself said recording it felt like reliving the pain all over again. Benny and Frida's marriage ended shortly after, leaving the band fractured in ways that could never be fully repaired. Then came the emotional cost. The women carried the heaviest burdens of fame, expected to maintain flawless appearances while coping with heartbreak. Agnetha withdrew from the spotlight, retreating into privacy that many mistook for reclusiveness. Frida sought strength, but lived with profound loss. Even Benny and Björn, though less scrutinized by tabloids, struggled with guilt and regret. Benny admitted that the endless pursuit of perfection in music sometimes blinded them to the human toll it was taking. They were building a legacy, but at the same time they were breaking apart as people. And perhaps the greatest cost of all was the silence that followed. After ABBA disbanded in the early 1980s, the group went decades without reuniting. For fans, it was a painful absence. For the band, it was a necessary distance from the trauma of their own story. Yet in the end, Benny revealed, the music that came from all that heartbreak wasn't just entertainment. It was survival. The songs carried the emotions they couldn't always express in words. But that raises the question, how has ABBA's legacy changed now that Benny has pulled back the curtain on these painful truths? For decades, ABBA's legacy was defined by glittering costumes, joyous melodies, and endless disco energy. Songs like Mamma Mia and Dancing Queen painted a picture of a band synonymous with happiness and fun. But as Benny's confession surfaced, fans began to see ABBA's story differently. The reality was that much of ABBA's music was born out of pain. The Winner Takes It All wasn't just a ballad. It was Agnetha singing about her real divorce. Knowing Me, Knowing You captured the disintegration of relationships. Even One of Us reflected longing and regret. Benny admitted that these weren't just songs crafted for pop success. They were therapeutic, a way for the band to process heartbreak while still giving the world music that could touch millions. In many ways, ABBA's ability to transform personal suffering into universal anthems was what made their music timeless. And yet, Benny acknowledged something fans had long suspected. The legacy of ABBA was bittersweet. For the audience, the music was joy. For the band, it was often a reminder of wounds that never fully healed. So when ABBA finally reunited decades later, what did it mean for the group and for the fans who had been waiting all that time? For years, the idea of an ABBA reunion seemed impossible. The members had gone their separate ways, building private lives far away from the flashing cameras. Agnetha, especially, avoided the spotlight, fueling speculation that the scars of the past were too deep to ever heal. And yet, in 2021, the unthinkable happened. ABBA returned with a brand new album, Voyage. For the first time in 40 years, fans were gifted new music from the band they thought they had lost forever. Benny explained that the reunion wasn't about reliving the past, but about finding closure. The members were older, wiser, and more at peace with their history. For Agnetha and Frida, it was a chance to sing again. Not as icons trapped in their youth, but as women who had endured and survived. The world embraced Voyage with open arms. It proved that ABBA's music wasn't frozen in the 1970s. It was timeless. But Benny admitted the comeback was also emotional. Every lyric, every note carried the weight of all the years that had passed, all the losses endured, and all the truths finally spoken. And yet, one question lingered. Now that Benny has revealed the painful reality behind ABBA's story, how should fans view the band moving forward? As symbols of joy, or survivors of heartbreak? When Benny Andersson finally confirmed the truth, it wasn't about record sales, awards, or even ABBA's legacy as one of the greatest bands of all time. It was about her, Agnetha Feltskog. For decades, fans had idolized Agnetha as the blonde starlet whose voice defined ABBA's biggest hits. But behind that image was a woman carrying immense pain. Benny admitted that while all 4 members suffered through fame in different ways, it was Agnetha who paid the highest price. Her natural shyness clashed with the demands of global superstardom. She longed for a simple life as a mother, yet was thrust into a relentless machine of tours, cameras, and scrutiny. Her divorce from Björn only deepened her struggles, and Benny confessed that many of the songs she sang, songs the world danced to, were built on the foundation of her own heartbreak. Benny's truth was simple, yet devastating. The world celebrated Agnetha, but it rarely saw her humanity. She wasn't just a voice, a smile, or a pop icon. She was a woman enduring loneliness, guilt, and the crushing expectations of fame. And now, at 78, Benny admits that while ABBA gave the world unforgettable music, he'll never stop carrying the weight of what it cost her. So in the end, when we listen to ABBA, are we hearing simple pop classics, or the hidden cries of a woman the world never truly knew? ABBA's story is one of dazzling success and heartbreaking sacrifice. Behind the glitter, the sequins, and the smiles were 4 people navigating love, loss, and the brutal price of fame. Benny Andersson's confession doesn't diminish ABBA's legacy, it deepens it. Because now we understand, those songs we still sing at weddings, parties, and concerts weren't just pop hits. They were the lived experiences of people who gave their hearts to the music, even as their own hearts were breaking. For Agnetha, the woman at the center of Benny's truth, the cost was immense. But perhaps that's why her voice resonates so deeply, because it carries not only melody, but pain, strength, and survival. So what do you think? Does Benny's confession change the way you hear ABBA's music today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of the stars you thought you knew. Because in the end, ABBA's songs weren't just about dancing queens and winning games, they were about life itself, beautiful, fragile, and unforgettable.